Hey everyone, this is Jess Peck with the Vermont Association of Realtors. I wanted to give you an update on the mandatory flood disclosure. Now, this disclosure went into effect last summer, so the summer of 2024, and there is an update to it that is coming as of September 1st, 2025, a month from now. So I wanted to let you know what those changes were so that you can be prepared. First, I will share and show you the new version of the disclosure. This will be available as of September 1st in providers such as Dotloop, SkySlope, other providers that we send our forms to. So the top part here indicates that the seller now needs to provide a copy of the flood map for their property. This can be a digital copy, a PDF that's attached to the disclosure. It can be a printed copy of the map that is attached to a printed copy of the disclosure, or just printed out and given to the buyer, or it can be a direct link, not just a link to where they can search for it, but a direct link to that specific property. So we'll get into that in a moment as well. So we have three options. A copy of the map is attached. A link to the map for the property is as follows, and it can be entered in there, or a map is unavailable. Now keep in mind, this is that the property is not mapped, not that there's not a digital copy of the map or that it's not digitized on the internet site, but that there is actually no map available at all. And we'll look at a few examples of that as well. Then the two questions that we have on here were also on the last disclosure. So has the property been subject to flooding or flood damage while the seller possessed the property? And that includes flood damage from inundation. So it's not just I live next to the river and the river overflowed and flooded the property, but it could be, I'm not near a river, but it rained so much that the land couldn't handle it and it flooded my property. So both of those kind of situations. If they check yes, there's a place to describe what the situation was, because that's going to be a question that comes up if they check yes. And then the last question is, does the seller maintain flood insurance on the property? Then the seller is signing off that they are making these statements. They're not statements or representations by the real estate agents. And then the buyer is signing off that they have received the disclosure, that it's their responsibility to review any attached or linked information, and that there may be map amendments or information available if they search that property online as well. As we know, some of these properties and the maps for those properties, specifically in areas that have flooded a lot, like Montpelier, have a ton of amendments and revisions, more than what could just be attached to something like this. It would turn into an 80-page disclosure. So giving the buyer that heads up that they may want to do a little extra digging there themselves. And then the buyer is signing off. Now, the other provisions to this, such as the buyer can terminate the contract anytime before receiving this up until the closing date, still holds. The legal options for the buyer, if they are not provided this, still hold. Specifically, if the seller knowingly didn't give them this, the buyer can sue them for damages and punitive damages. So those provisions are still in effect as well. So I want to pull up the website quick to show you what we are looking at for searches. So searching on the site is the same as what we've been doing since this came into effect. So if we look at an address that I know has a flood map to it, it's going to pull up the information here. And here's the map. And what I can do is I can download, you can do it either way. The dynamic map is going to bring up another screen and let you print stuff off, or you can just download the map image. So if you just click download on that, it's going to download it into your downloads folder, and then you can pull it from there and attach to whatever you need to. But you can see here there are 44 amendments and 1 revalidation, and most of those are a couple pages long, so it turns very large if you try to attach everything. Now you'll also see up in the address bar here, I do have a direct link to this map. I can see in the midst of all these symbols, it does say 148 State Street, Montpelier. So if I copied that link and put it in the disclosure, while it would be a pain for somebody to type this all out and search for it, because keep in mind the links that are on the disclosure, like from dotloop, are not clickable, somebody could type it in and print it out, or search for it on their own with this direct link. It would bring this to the direct map. You'll see this doesn't always show up in the address field up there, especially if you're searching multiple properties. So I'll show you what might happen here. So if I pull up another address, this property I know does not have so it has the dots, so the map is not digitized, but you can see right here, I can still, under map image, I can still download the map panel, and it's going to download that map for me, even though it's not digitized like that one in Montpelier. So you'd still be able to attach it here to your disclosure. Now, if you look at the top here, it didn't change. It still has, in the midst of that, 148 State Street, Montpelier. So I don't have a direct link to this map because it didn't update that information. So you're not always going to be able to find a direct link. If I cleared my cookies and exited out of here and went back in, it might work then. But just pay attention to what is in this address bar if you are trying to copy a link. Now, the third example I'm going to pull up is one that does not have a map. So this property is hashtagged out, which is a map does not exist for this property. So in this, folks are going to be able to check off there is no map for this property, digital or otherwise. So those would be sort of the three examples that you may find with this new disclosure, and how folks are needing to check things off. So that is the update for the disclosure. Again, this new disclosure goes into effect September 1st, so up in 2025. So up until then, you'll still be using the disclosure we have been using. But as of September 1st, you'll be using the new disclosure, and that will be live in dotloop and SkySlope and the other providers that we send those forms to. If you have any questions, please reach out to the VAR office and we will do our best to answer them for you. Thanks, everyone.